We were told that AI would take over jobs and replace data science with machines. Obviously, I don't want to be laid off. So let's see how good ChatGPT really is and if it will replace me one day. So in this video, let's see if ChatGPT can handle a data science project from start to finish. Let's use the Student Performance Analysis project found on Statistical, which is a take-home assignment from a company called Pearson. So Pearson is an educational publisher that publishes and distributes academic books. We classified this project as an easy business analyst project. The dataset consists of data collected from 2 Portuguese schools, focusing on student achievement in mathematics and achievement in the Portuguese language. The purpose of this project is to uncover insights that could help understand the variables that contribute to and predict student academic success. So with all of that said, let's talk about where ChatGPT has failed. Number 1, anything your company would use professionally. So I'm talking about legality, not ability of ChatGPT. If you ask ChatGPT to write code and you approve that code to be pushed to your production platforms in your company, you could be exposed to an ugly lawsuit. That's because ChatGPT freely pulls code snippets from data that it was trained on. And it was trained on external data sources, so you cannot tell where this code is coming from or whether it's licensed or copyrighted. So that's one problem. The other problem is just the opposite. If you're copy and pasting code owned by your company in order for, say, ChatGPT to help you debug this code, you're essentially non-compliant with your company's policy, because all companies hate it when their IP leaves the safety of the company's firewalls. And then in addition, if you're uploading a data set for ChatGPT to help you with a project, you're also non-compliant if that data set actually belongs to the company you're working for. Because again, you're distributing company IP past their firewalls to be stored by OpenAI. So right off the bat, if you're working at a company, there's already a limited amount of things you can do with ChatGPT due to copyright and compliance regulations. Number 2, ChatGPT is not very good at anything involving statistical tests. This data project is a business analysis, so there's going to be a lot of statistical tests run on the data. So I've asked ChatGPT to write some Python code to run these tests. ChatGPT draws a histogram showing a distribution of the final grades for the Portuguese language and correctly chooses to perform a chi-squared test. This test is also used in the official solution of the project that was found on Statistical.com. There's a link in the description. So far so good. It calculates a chi-squared of 11.4 and a p-value of 0.0072, so it's statistically significant. But it's completely off compared to the official solution showed here. We get a chi-squared statistic of 21.91 and a p-value of 0.15. So obviously the conclusion is completely opposite. There is no statistically significant variable here, but ChatGPT thinks that the gender variable has a significant impact on grades. So the question is why? It seems that the answer is given by ChatGPT itself, but also you can find the answer in an article called Why ChatGPT Can't Do Basic Math on Medium. ChatGPT admits that it doesn't use a calculator for mathematical computations, so it generates its responses based on patterns in natural language and documents that it was trained on. They can, of course, be full of errors. As a result, ChatGPT's calculations can also be wrong. So can you really trust outputs if you don't think ChatGPT can perform these calculations correctly? I don't think so. The additional benefit of a human component in this work means that there's also an extra layer of sanity checking where the data scientist can figure out what correct statistical test to use and then also validate the assumptions to ensure that you're using the right test given the data set that you got. This is something ChatGPT does not do, nor explicitly mention that they do, but it's one of the most important pre-processing steps a data scientist must do to ensure that their results are accurate, an important human touch that AI forgets to do. Number 3, understanding stakeholder priorities, or the fact that ChatGPT cannot integrate stakeholder priorities. Let's say the goal of this project is to build a tool that grades fairly by adjusting test scores based off of variables it analyzes in the dataset. For example, adjusting scores based off of a student's educational level and study time and gender, etc., etc. Does ChatGPT know how to incorporate these variables and these priorities correctly? In theory, it does, as it rightly includes the fairness and bias assessment stage in the model building process, as you can see here. But when we run the analysis using ChatGPT, it avoids direct answers regarding actual decision making and incorporating the priorities of stakeholders. I asked for it to explain why female students have higher grades than males and asked for it to include the actual data set when explaining it. I also want to know how this impacts the fairness of a grading tool that I want to build. But ChatGPT gives me a pretty generic answer that sounds like it's actually not looking at the data set when providing that answer. It also includes some example code which is completely unusable. So okay, it seems like I have to be a little bit more specific. So I tell ChatGPT to analyze the above contributing factors on the actual data that I provided. It performs the analysis, it attaches the Python code for that analysis, and it gives me implications for fairness that I can use for my grading tool. But it expects me to write that code that will incorporate all of these variables together, basically making me incorporate the priorities of the stakeholders myself. So I must say that it does a great job in communicating these factors and how we may build a tool that fairly incorporates these issues. But it's not going to take my job because it doesn't write code to finish off the project. Rather, it's just acting as a mentor or as a teammate and analysis for my project. So I'm going to now force ChatGPT to write the code for me. With this prompt, it seems that I've reached ChatGPT's breaking point. It does a good job of writing code to process the data and prepare it for the model building step. But when it comes to writing code for the fairness considerations, it gives me nothing but comments. So in conclusion, you can't use ChatGPT to write code that will incorporate priorities, as that involves actual decision making. As you've seen, ChatGPT obviously wants to avoid making these decisions. And I'd say that's not a bug, but a feature to maybe avoid being sued by relying on ChatGPT's decision. Number 4, handling novel problems. ChatGPT is not creative. It just reshuffles what it's learned from its training data it has found on the internet. Try to ask it something that hasn't come across before. For example, let's think outside the box and include social economic data to understand how variables like internet access, parental education, and family size might affect a student's grades and performance. When I introduced this variable, ChatGPT's response was limited to the data it had and instead used proxy variables to indicate a student's economic status very vaguely. It was written at a high level and didn't even suggest some of the better indicators like wages, so I had to do it myself. Once I did, it correctly realized that the existing dataset had no wage data and asked for that additional data. So I uploaded this dataset containing wages by zip codes and wanted ChatGPT to compare the test scores based on the wages. But in reality though, I expect ChatGPT to be able to find the data itself because it is publicly available data. It's not hidden behind a paywall or anything like that. So what happened? ChatGPT realized that this student dataset doesn't have zip code information, so it can't be merged with the new dataset that I gave it. So now ChatGPT seems to be in a loop it can't exit. It says that the solution to this problem is combining the dataset on the zip code, but we have no way to actually do this. So can it try a different way? Can it use different data? Can it find a different dataset online that it can work with? No, you have to tell ChatGPT exactly what to do. So at that point, what is the point? I can just do this work myself. So the point is, the success of the project relies entirely on you. ChatGPT can help with fundamentals that are often required at the beginning of projects, like performing exploratory data analysis, for example. But anything further than that, you need to tell it exactly what to do and provide it with all of the information you need. In that regard, its success depends on how experienced you are. So it's never going to replace you. And because of that, your job is safe. If you like content like this, please subscribe to this channel and go on to stratascratch.com to get data science resources. Thank you.